In Activity 3, Hot Air Balloons, students study hot air balloons to discover the principles of lighter-than-air flight. They relate an object's ability to float to its density. Students then discover that warm air is less dense than cool air, and finally launch a solar-heated hot air balloon. You will need the following material from the kit: Activity Sheet 3, Parts A and B, round balloons, a plastic bottle, plastic bowls, a plastic jar, a glass marble, a wooden marble, rubber bands, a solar balloon, and modeling clay. You will also need to provide a small electrical fan or hairdryer, ice, pictures of hot air balloons, a heavy rock, scissors, hot and cold tap water, and a roll of paper towels. To prepare for Session 1, make a copy of Activity Sheet 3, Part A for each student. Have students bring pictures of hot air balloons to class. You will need a round balloon, a plastic jar, some tap water, a glass marble, and a wooden marble for a demonstration. Each team of 4 will need 1 round balloon, 1 plastic bottle, and 2 bowls of water, one filled with hot water and the other filled with ice water. Have paper towels on hand in case of spills. To begin Session 1, distribute the pictures of hot air balloons and Activity Sheet 3, Part A. Review the parts of a hot air balloon and instruct students to label the diagram. The large, colorful, inflatable part of the balloon is the envelope. The burner is beneath the mouth of the envelope, which heats the air inside the balloon. The suspension cables by which the wicker basket or gondola is attached to the balloon, and the fuel tanks are in the basket. Next, ask if gravity is constantly pulling down on objects, how can an aircraft go up in the air and stay up? Students may guess that the aircraft must be exerting some sort of force to overcome gravity. Explain that lift is the upward force that enables an object to overcome gravity. All aircrafts must achieve lift in order to fly. Hot air balloons are considered lighter than air crafts. These crafts achieve lift by essentially becoming lighter than air. Blow up a balloon, tie it, and hold it up for students to see. Now drop the balloon. After it lands on the floor, ask, is this inflated balloon lighter than air or heavier than air? The balloon fell to the floor, so it must be heavier than air. Then ask, so how can a hot air balloon, with all the equipment and passengers it carries, possibly be lighter than air? Students may suggest that heating the air inside the balloon has something to do with it. Fill the plastic jar halfway with water. Drop the marbles in the water. Students should observe that the glass marble sank while the wooden marble floated. Explain that density is a measure of the amount of material in a given volume or space. The density of a substance depends on how much its individual molecules weigh and how closely they are packed together. An object's ability to float depends on its density and the density of the material around it. An object that is less dense than the material around it will float. An object that is denser than the material around it will sink. Ask, which marble is more dense than the water? Which is less dense? The glass marble sank in the water, so it must be more dense than water. The wooden marble floated, so it must be less dense than water. Return students' attention to the pictures of the hot air balloons. Explain that a hot air balloon floats in air the same way a wooden marble floats in water. For a hot air balloon to float, the air inside the balloon must be less dense than the air outside the balloon. Distribute the materials to each team of 4. Fill one of the bowls with hot water and the other bowl with ice water. Remind students that air is inside the bottle. Have students place the balloon over the mouth of the bottle. Hold the bottle in the bowl of hot water and watch the balloon inflate. Then, have students hold the bottle in the bowl of ice water. Watch the balloon deflate and collapse. Guide students to understand that as the air in the bottle cooled, it contracted. Then ask, why do you think the air inside a hot air balloon is heated? The air is heated to make it less dense, which helps the balloon to rise and float in the air. To conclude Session 1, empty the jar and bowls of water. Collect the materials and return them to the kit. To prepare for Session 2, make a copy of Activity Sheet 3, Part B for each student. You will need to conduct this session on a sunny day. Choose an area outdoors that will receive direct, sustained sunlight but is shielded from the wind. You will need the solar balloon, a small fan or hair dryer to inflate the balloon, 2 rubber bands, and a rock to tether the balloon to keep it from floating away. To begin Session 2, distribute a copy of Activity Sheet 3, Part B, to each student. Wrap a rubber band around one end of the solar balloon to seal it shut. Fill the balloon from the other end with air from a fan or hair dryer. When the balloon is about 90% full of air, tie it off with a rubber band. Hold the balloon up in the air, then let go and allow it to fall to the floor. Ask students, what do we need to do to make the balloon lighter than air and get it to float? They should understand that you must heat the air inside the balloon. Inform students that they are going to place their balloon in the sunlight. The dark color of the balloon will absorb heat from the sun and warm up the air inside the balloon. Set up the balloon in a sunny spot outdoors, sheltered from the wind. Tether the balloon to a rock. Have students record the time and the position of the balloon in relation to the ground. Check on the balloon every 10 minutes. After an hour, retrieve the balloon and ask students, what made this balloon float? The sunlight warmed the air inside the balloon, causing it to become less dense. When the density of the balloon became less than the density of the air surrounding the balloon, the craft became lighter than air and was able to float. Finally, tell students that in the next activity, kites, they are going to learn about heavier than air flight, beginning with kites. To conclude Session 2, retrieve the solar balloon, deflate and fold it, and return it to the kit along with the rubber bands. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.